classes for developers and designers who are interested in rapidly acquiring new skills. So that's what I want to talk about today. How do we learn how to learn? So imagine a world with thousands of interconnected nodes, something like our internet, right? Whoa. That's not it. Where's our world of thousands of interconnected nodes? Come back. How's that? All right. And control. Certain routes along between nodes might become popular, and as those routes become more and more popular, then people get interested in what's happening. Someone might come in and try to control the flow or slow things down there, right? Luckily, our government is preventing that slowing down from happening with our net neutrality rules that say all bits must be treated equally. Okay, so rather than slowing things down or treating equally, what if there was actually a third way to handle popular routes in a system of interconnected nodes? Sure enough, there is, and it's called your brain. We have dozens of such awesome inventions right here in the room, and thanks to evolution, these things are creating routes between separate nodes and actually accelerating the most popular routes. It's an amazing adaptive network where communication between nodes gets faster and faster the more it is used. So there's actually physical changes that are happening in our brain that we cause just by thinking about things or experiencing things. And this is how skills and our abilities are developed. As a parent, I'm pretty interested in this as I watch my children develop new abilities and skills. And as an educator, I'm very interested in this in terms of figuring out how to help my students best develop the skills that they need to succeed in their lives. So this is your brain. It's got two main components to it. The outer layer of gray matter that serves as the connection to the rest of your body. Your arms, your legs, your eyes and ears, your sensory systems, and a lot of your memories are stored, interfaced through this gray matter. This is basically the hardware API to your body. Now the stuff in the middle, this is where the magic happens. Right? This is the white matter. And this is essentially the software. This can be written and rewritten based on the experiences and the situations that we put ourselves into. And again, all it is ultimately is a network of impulses that get sent between nodes. All of our abilities and skills depend on how well these channels are able to be traveled by the electrical signals within our brain. And this is what it looks like when you get down to the smallest pieces of it. A single axon that connects two neurons is insulated by this amazing material called myelin, which is essentially lipids, fatty lipids and proteins that serve to prevent leakage of the electrical signal. They increase the response times as communication between nodes happens, and all of it results in making us more efficient at a skill or ability that we're attempting to develop. So in cross-section, it looks like this. This is the physical representation of a skill within our brain. There's a central axon there that's surrounded by wraps and wraps and wraps of this insulating myelin. This is my diaper-changing ability right here. Or maybe it's my ability to detect what a good user interface looks like. And so all of this physical representation of our skills means that practice makes permanent. Right? The more we do things over and over again, the more they become ingrained in our brains. The better we get at doing it, the way that we've practiced it, it becomes permanent. So then that poses the question, what kinds of things would we actually want to be a permanent part of our brain? If we could rewire our own brains, if this really is software that can be written or hacked or tweaked or adjusted, how would we want to do that? And what are the tools and strategies that we can use to write our software the way we actually want it to be written? Whether it's negotiating business deals or learning how to do great designs or figuring out how to write apps for the tablet in addition to the iPhone or something else. So, to help tell this story, I want to introduce Jamal. Now, if you're a developer, you may be thinking, oh, he's going to make me learn another markup language, but no. It's not another markup language. This is Jamal. He was one of my students at Code Fellows. He came to us after traveling through China for a few years, as an artist and a teacher. He realized he kind of had a knack for using computers and decided he wanted a job as a developer. So I want to talk to you about how we did, what we taught him, and what kind of techniques he used to try to learn these new skills. So it comes down to three main categories. You have to create the physical space, the mental space, and the time space to learn a new skill. Time space, I don't know if that's good English or not, so let's start there and figure out what that means. Basically, lots of research has gone into sorting out how someone becomes a master of a skill or a craft. So you may have heard of the 10,000 hours theory. Look into it a little bit closely, because 10,000 hours isn't an exact representation, of course. It's an average over time for a number of different people who have achieved mastery. Some people are able to do it in 8,000. Some it takes 20. But however many it is, the key concept is there. You have to invest thousands of hours into working on a skill in order to achieve mastery. Now, it may sound like a lot, but luckily for you, the things that you may be doing as a part of your career or the new skills that you may want to learn can actually be, am I buzzing? You can actually get yourself ahead of the curve just by investing a few thousand hours. You don't have to go 10,000, maybe only 5,000 or 2,000 hours would put you in a place where you're better able to contribute to your team, or you're able to get into a whole new career or make your life better in some other way. So let's talk about how to do that. The whole goal is to reach automaticity, where when you need to execute on a skill, your body is able to do it so quickly and so efficiently that it becomes an automatic part of those neurons firing in your brain. It takes a lot of work to get there. It takes a lot of hours invested to reach automaticity. And so really, as a strategy, what you need is grit. Some interesting research showed that a psychological evaluation of someone determined that grit was the most important factor in determining which candidates could make it through the West Point cadet boot camp. It wasn't their physical strength. It wasn't their leadership ability or their background or anything else. All that mattered was their perseverance, their willingness to grit it out, right? So what exactly is grit? It's perseverance and passion for long-term goals. Grit is having stamina, sticking with it for your future, day in and day out. Not just for the week, not just for the month, but for years. This is Angela Duckworth, who did that study with the West Point cadets. So, if you're going to be gritting it out for the long haul, let's talk about some tactics about what you're actually doing during those 10,000 hours. First of all, it's all about the baby steps. You're going to work your way to mastery by making small improvements along the way. Just get a tiny bit better, and a tiny bit better. I wish I could say it was 3 steps, but this goes 1, 2, 3, and on and on and on, right? And it's compounded over time that matters. And those baby steps really are about breaking down the problem you want to solve into the smallest chunks. There's a theory in learning called chunking, where you take a more complicated concept and look at the pieces it takes to get there. This is how all of us learn to read. I watched it happen with my own kids. First, they would learn to sing the ABC song. Then they learned that each of those letters were there as a part of that song. LMNOP is not a single letter, for example, right? They break down the chunks. With each one of those chunks, it makes its own sound. And it can be combined with other chunks in other ways. As you learn each sound and you're able to combine those together, you're able to build up and create larger chunks. Those chunks themselves can be combined in different ways. And as you learn to combine those chunks, you're able to go from letters to words to reading whole sentences, and then, of course, books as well. So let's look at this from a practical perspective. When Jamal wanted to learn Ruby on Rails, we broke it down for him into chunks. We talk about learning MVC separation, RESTful routing, the ORM persistence layers. We taught him skills with using Ruby and Git, and he was able to combine those chunks together to start to get his head around how the whole Rails framework works. And all of these pieces, these baby steps you're taking, these chunks that you're looking to learn, they need to happen at the edge of your knowledge. You can't just spend 10,000 hours doing one thing. Think about people who have been driving all their lives. They've been in the car for over 10,000 hours probably, but there's no expert drivers out there who have just been commuting for a long time in their life, right? You actually have to practice at the edge of your knowledge. So if we zoomed in on the whole sphere of our knowledge, our goal is to just bang a dent in it right there at the outer edge and try to make some extra space, just a little bit of extra space. So we say, mind the gap. Pay attention to what's different between what you actually know and what you need for mastery. Recognize your own shortcomings. This is where failure becomes a key guiding piece to move us towards mastery. Every time we fail, every time we make a mistake, it's not a block in the road, it's just a toll booth. It's a price that we pay to keep moving forward. So mind the gap and refine your taste so that you can understand how to get from where you are to where you need to be. Okay, let's talk about strategies and tactics for creating the right mental space for rapid learning. First of all, you got to commit to it. Some interesting research showed that children who were learning a musical instrument were evaluated beforehand in terms of how long they thought they would be using that skill that they were learning. The longer term they thought they would be playing the instrument, the better they did under the exact same instruction conditions. Everyone was taught the instrument the same way. The students who had a different mindset coming in about how long they would use this skill proved to be the best students. So make a commitment from the beginning and say that if there's a new skill you want to learn, it's going to be something you're going to stick with all your life. Because really, there is no upper bound on how good of a designer you can be or how good of a developer you can be, how good of a product builder you can be. Just let yourself go for it and consider it a lifelong learning goal. Okay, another great strategy for the right mental space is to be inspired. Figure out what it is that lights you up, that keeps you going. Your inspiration is your fuel for continuing on your journey and being able to grit it out. I used to think that spending time looking at hearing inspiring stories was just a waste of time distracting me from really getting my work done. But I was convinced by the research that says that I needed that as fuel to continue my journey and prevent burnout. And then finally, another great strategy to develop the right mental space for rapid learning is to map it out. So we looked at a piece of how you would break down the Rails framework. Here's actually the complete ecosystem of what you need to know to be a competent Rails developer from top to bottom, right? There's a lot there, and this is a map that we give to our students to show them where the gaps in their learning might be, and they can pick a path through this to figure out how to get to mastery. Now, the tactics include working hard. We talked about grit. This is where it comes into play again. You need to be able to work hard and not just succeed because you're smart, right? Students who were told that they were smart were less willing to face new challenges, did not do as well when put in situations where they didn't have the skills that they needed already. As opposed to students who told that their success was based on their hard work, they were able to, again and again, embrace new challenges and do better when faced with situations that they weren't comfortable with. You have to know that it's your hard work that's going to get you there, not just coasting through because you're smart. Another great tactic is to ask well-formed questions. I like to think of this as pre-myelinating your neurons, right? You're prepping some of those neurons to have the answer ready for you. You're creating the mental space, you're making that dent in your knowledge, and giving the answer a place to live once it arrives. And then finally, rhyme. Your brain loves rhyme. So if you want to learn in a shorter time, rephrase the lesson with a bit of rhyme. It's a great trick for anything you find yourself stuck on. All right, let's talk about how to find the right physical space for rapid learning. Find a way to be able to reflect excellence. A lot of our brain works on mirror neurons, where we can actually have our axons firing just based on what we're seeing. Without even performing an activity, we can be doing the practice and causing additional layers of myelin to be wrapped around certain skill circuits. So to do this, we want to surround ourselves with excellence. We want to find positive emotional contagions. Being around happy people will keep us in a happier attitude and more able and willing to learn. And then finally, those same neurons can be used to find an empathetic connection with others. Just by sitting in a way that very subtly mimics the posture and the body language of someone else. Both parties have been shown to be able to reach a more equitable agreement in studies around how negotiations can happen, right? So if you're in sales or if you're doing business deals, this is a great strategy to use to let your mirror neurons and the other person's mirror neurons get in play, right? You have to do it in a way that's not obvious, but if you're very subtle about reflecting the body language of the other person, then you end up being both empathetic towards each other, and better deals are reached in negotiations. Okay, some tactics around this are stay focused on good health and stay healthy. If your body is up and running well, then your brain doesn't need to spend a lot of time working on getting you better, and you can focus on your learning. So get a lot of good sleep, and take brain breaks as needed. You may be familiar with the Pomodoro technique, where after every 25 minutes you take a 5-minute break. If you ever doubt how effective that can be, let's just take a minute, take a mental break right now. Let's do 10 seconds of quiet reflection. Can you feel it? Now you're ready to focus, right? So let's talk about the tactics. Find a mentor. Get one-on-one tutoring. Nothing can help you learn anything as well as having an expert who understands exactly the situation you're in, can answer the exact specific questions you have, and is able to help you move forward with a path that's designed just for you. Now that can be hard depending on what it is that you want to learn. So finding a skilled teacher in a classroom setting or something like that, getting connected to a learning community can be a big help. Look for local meetup groups. Find online classes. You'll learn better in person if you can find in-person classes. Go to professional conferences. Hey, good job. Got it. And find places where you can be around other people who are also on the same learning journey that you're on to encourage you along the way. So, with all of these strategies that we gave Jamal, he totally nailed the rapid development, the rapid skill acquisition, and he's now working as a Rails developer at Getty Images. It's a great spot for him. So I like to say, genetics can suck it, right? No longer are we just limited by our genes and what we have. We now know, the research has been building up over the years, that it's the complex interactions of the genes we have with the mental and physical spaces that we put ourselves into. So if you thought that you were genetically gifted to do the job that you're doing, sorry, wrong. And if you think that you don't have the genetics to achieve some skill that you're interested in, fucking wrong. So get out there and go learn something awesome. Thank you.